Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's always hard being the first speaker after lunch. So I'll try not to put you too much to sleep. So this section is called Drug Courts and Legal Issues Related to Addiction and Recovery. First of all, let me say it's good to be back at Union College. I got my undergraduate degree here and they started me on my way to law school. And back then they were looking for a non-traditional student. That's what they were building, and I was certainly a non-traditional student. I was anxious to get to University of Kentucky College of Law. Do I need to stop talking? No. So I have been the district judge for Whitley and McCreary counties for 19 years. I know I don't look that old, but I am. So as district judge, let me just give you a little bit of background. I hear lots of cases. I hear for example, the murder case that just was resolved in Whitley. I heard the first hearing on that. So I get them, but then I send it on to the next court. I probate your will when you die. I fine you whenever you get a speeding ticket. I handle eviction cases. I handle small claims cases, but that's what I do to do what I do. About half of what I do involves juveniles, and that's my passion. That's where my heart is. So a juvenile, by the way, in case you don't know, but I'm sure you do, it's a child under the age of 18. So let me give you a little background and see how we have had to evolve through the years to be where we are today. When I started 19 years ago, juvenile drug courts were state funded all across Kentucky. So we got money from AOC, salaries were paid, drug screens were paid, everything was great. I volunteered my time, which I still do. That wasn't part of my salary, but I believed in it. That ended, I tried to find the exact date this morning, but it's a little over 10 years ago. State funded. It's when all the budget cuts started coming and everybody started losing all the good stuff. Well, they kept the adult drug court, but they stopped the juvenile drug court. So what did we do? A couple of our school systems actually funded us for a couple of years. And then they said, oh, we can't do this anymore because we've lost our budget extra too. So then we started fundraising. A judge can't fundraising, but we had a group that did fundraising. And one of our biggest draws at that time as a fundraiser was a cornhole tournament. The first time in my life I played cornhole. I got it in the first time. I've never got it in that little hole since. But it was fun. And we still have a cornhole tournament. We're doing it in conjunction with the old-fashioned days in Williamsburg. So come down, I think it's the first weekend after or before Labor Day. I got somebody with me back there. That's my right hand. Before, okay, it's that first weekend anyway. So come down to Williamsburg to Old Fashioned Days and you'll see us playing cornhole. Well, around this same time, we were invited to participate in Reclaiming Futures. This is a national model that was originally put in place to deal with kids in the court system because there was no other standard. Everybody was just hit and miss. Even Kentucky's drug courts, they were hit and miss. Okay, here's the basic parameter, do what you can. Here's a little bit of money to help you. But there was no national model for how do you treat kids. Initially, a lot of states tried to use the adult model for drug court, and guess what? That didn't work. It was a total disaster. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about Reclaiming Futures. Tonight, if you can't sleep, Google it. It's a lesson. It's a wonderful, wonderful model. So, how does a child become involved in juvenile drug court Reclaiming Futures? Well, 19 years ago, the child would have been charged with a public offense, which is a crime if an adult committed it, or a status offense, which would not be a crime. That would be like not going to school, beyond control of your custodian. And all those came into court. At one time, my biggest number, I believe I had 38 at one time. That was back in the good old days. So when we learned that that child had a drug problem, we always learn because the parents are there telling you, the school systems are telling you. They were automatically referred for an assessment, and more likely than not, they ended up in the old-fashioned juvenile drug court. It was a 9 to 12 month program of screens, assessments, and counseling. I'll never forget, I was green, still am some days. But I asked one of our therapists, I said, well, what, because I've been reading, I read a lot. And I said, what model do you use for your individual counseling? And I love this man dearly. He's passed on to his next life. But he said, well, we just talk a lot. I said, okay, well, what do you talk about? He said, whatever they want to talk about. And And I said, well, do you talk about their drug use and why, where, when, how? I never mentioned drugs, he said. If the child mentions it, yeah, we would talk about it. And I said, so this type of therapy doesn't have a name. Remember, I'm a lawyer. I don't know all this good stuff. And he said, well, no, not really. We just talk. That bothered me real bad. But anyway, if the child completed drug court back in those days, then their charge would be dismissed, whatever it was. Occasionally there would be some restitution to be paid, and that would be part of what they had to do through the drug court program that lasted 9 to 12 months. So, Reclaiming Futures, it came along roughly 8, 9 years ago, 10, 11. I'm looking at Melissa back there. She's my right-hand program director. But anyway, it came along. The concept behind Reclaiming Futures is it's available in your community, and you do with it, you take it and run. Basically, you take it and run. The idea is to use services that are available already. And we evolved. I like that word. We think outside the box and we evolved. The Cumberland River Behavioral Health, otherwise known as Comp Care, took this program in under their umbrella. And the rest is history. We have had one of the most successful Reclaiming Futures models in the United States. It's been great. And COVID hit, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Most children have a medical card that I deal with in my area. And so they get the services. And even if they don't have a medical card, if they've got that, I call them in the gap parents, where they make enough, they got insurance, but the insurance doesn't cover it and they don't qualify for a medical card. So Comp Care helps out there. And that also is where fundraising comes in. So that can be used for that also. Another thing that I was so impressed with Reclaiming Futures is it's evidence-based. Remember the wonderful guy? And I said, what kind of therapy, what are you doing? Well, we use evidence-based therapy, and I have, with help from my Comp Care people, I have taught entire half-day seminars on that. And obviously we don't have time to get into that today. And I'm already 10 minutes in. Okay. Let me just briefly tell you about the model for Reclaiming Futures. Screening, assessments, service coordination. I had a hard time wrapping my head around service coordination at the beginning. It's simply a case plan. It's a plan for each child that gives them what they need. Simple. Initiation, the pilot says, the model says, do it in less than 2 weeks. We usually do it in 24 to 48 hours, which you got to do sometimes. And then engaging the family. Now, the final step used to be conclusion. You don't conclude. You simply transition. You transition that child out of the pediatric, juvenile, adolescent services into adult services. Hopefully they've graduated from high school, they're on their way to some trade school, to college, or they have a job. One thing also that made a difference, and I'm talking really fast, I know because I've got so much to get in, is mentoring. When we first started, we had an actual person who ran the mentoring program. Needless to say, that got killed too with COVID. Okay, back on track. So, remember I said we were getting all the kids with public offenses and status offenses in? Then came Senate Bill 200. We still all cringe if you're in juvenile court when you hear Senate Bill 200. I've even refused to learn the official KRS number of it. Okay, it became in effect 2015. And I admit it had some good qualities. But what it did is it substantially limits the cases coming into court. Instead, children go through a diversion process with the court designated worker, who is an employee of AOC, the Administrative Office of the Courts. And they go through a process with the court designated worker. So we were no longer seeing these kids that we knew had drug problems because they were over here on this side with the worker, never to come to court unless they failed that diversion. And guess what? If they went through, failed the diversion, by that time, when they do get to me, they're already so far into drugs, we're going, what are we going to do? And yeah, I meant to do that. What are we going to do? Or if we had gotten them 8 months earlier, we could have done something. Well, then we started getting conversation from the court designated worker saying, how long, we gotta get these kids services. So we created track 1 is drug court. So then we created a track 2, which is called the diversion track for the CDW kids. I never see those kids. I don't need to see them because they're on a diversion. So they have some services put in place that they have to complete for their diversion to be successful. Sounds good. Yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Then we started getting requests from families. Grandma, whoever the custodian was saying, hey, I got a feeling this kid's running with the wrong crowd. No charges in court, no charges CDW. Is there something I can do to help him or her? So now we have track 3, prevention. So we now offer services. And again, I don't see these kids because they're not in court. But Comp Care has the 3rd track where they offer services. They meet with parents, meet with kids. And it's a very shortened version of drug court because, as I said, I don't have a hammer I can hit them over the head with like I can in drug court. The idea with Reclaiming Futures is to front load the services. You know what that means, front load? You put them all in front. You don't wait till the kid's already through the process and say, oh, you probably need to get some counseling. No, you do it at the outset, be it individual counseling, intensive outpatient, work counseling, whatever it may be. But you try to, what was it Barney Fife used to say? Nip it in the bud. Nip it in the bud. But front loading the service, and we had recently, and I always get choked up when I talk about this one, but we had a little girl in our community who killed herself. She was a straight A student, perfect friends, perfect kid, everything perfect, mom, dad, perfect. And one day after shopping for clothes, she killed herself. And so that mother has started a group called Bethany's Hope. You may have heard of it, but it's about suicide prevention. And so I got up with her last summer, and she is now part of our Reclaiming Futures group. And Comp Care is getting training. I've actually had a short training on suicide prevention. It is available. I urge all of you, if you haven't already had it, get it. At least you'll kind of have an idea of what to look for. So I have barely scratched the surface. Like I said, I do half-day and day conferences on this. But if you want more information, get up with me when we're done, and I will happily give you contact information. And I think we're going to wait until everybody talks, and then we'll take questions. So I'm right at 15 minutes. All right, our next speaker is Renee Moore, and she is president of Community Treatment and Tracking Solutions.
Hello, my name is Renee Moore, and I'm the founder of Community Treatment and Tracking Solutions. I've trademarked the name Rehabilitation Electronic Monitoring. First, I'd like to say that I specialize in the tracking, and when I was in the development stages of this concept and this company, I needed a treatment partner. And so I sought out a small company that was in London, and about the same time, they were about the same growth process that I was, and that's RRJ Solutions. Since 2018, by collaborating and coming together and having treatment and tracking, we've been able to grow to 5 locations since 2018. What's important about treatment and tracking is that, you know, right here, this is an ARC research that we really are at the epicenter of economic distress and drug overdoses. So what my product is that this looks like a phone. It is a phone, it's a smartphone, but it's a proprietary phone that has 2 separate functions to it. It's okay, you can just let it loop. it has a phone, and then you can push an app, and then it turns to a second operating system, and it's treatment. It's cognitive behavioral therapy, it's telemedicine, it has got questionnaires. It can be used anything from for MAT providers. It's used for drug court. It's even been used for COVID, during COVID, where that here in Kentucky, we had a case where a judge put someone on an ankle bracelet because they didn't want to sign a piece of paper related to COVID. And a lot of counties sought me out, and we actually got to put people on my app. So you can either have an app that goes on your phone, or if your risk level is high enough that you get this that pairs with this. What we do is that with rehabilitation electronic monitoring, we meet people literally at the booking area of the jail, or we work with attorneys and judges and prosecutors in the courtroom. So if we get someone who is crisis situation, statistics say if someone is incarcerated and they're not out in 48 hours, their chances of losing their job and their family falling apart goes up to 75%. So I can't tell you how many people's jobs that I've saved by going to the jail at 3 o'clock in the morning so they can go to work at 7. We only deal with people who have substance abuse issues. They have to agree that, and all of them have substance abuse related charges, whether it's they were impaired or possession. So from the moment that we meet them, they're already signed up for treatment. They're receiving services. They have access to case management. We have psych nurse practitioners. We have licensed therapists that cover from LPCCs to CADCs to LCADCs, peer support. So immediately, there's not a lag time in, they have time to think about it because they're in that teachable moment. So for the app, which has all the same features as the phone. So for some people, we have a project in one drug court where some case managers before was having to drive out to people's houses that was in drug court and honk their horn, and they had a curfew, and they would have to come stand out on the porch, and the case manager would have to take a picture and prove that they were there. With the app, it has facial recognition. That supervisor can literally be at home and check and make sure that everybody is at home and make them do a questionnaire because it has facial recognition and GPS monitoring. So this is just some of the features that we have on the phone. For example, that we have with real-time check-ins and questionnaires, we can give outcome measurements for programs, whether it's a treatment program, an MAT provider, drug court, even prosecutors and judges, outcomes of what that person has achieved. And it's in real time that if they have an obstacle, we're going to be the first person to know what their obstacle is and meet them where they're at. A best practice to illustrate is that between CTTS and RRJ, we're doing a pilot program called Putting Kentuckians First in Russell County, and it's with Kentucky Workforce Innovation. As you can see here, what we're doing is that exactly that. We're meeting people at the jail or in the courthouse. It's a diversion program, and they're meeting with RJ, getting that needs assessment, and then immediately they're getting put on the app. So once that their needs assessment is completed, we have multiple partners. We have GED or adult ed, I should say, because they do so much more than that. We have employers, we have job training programs. So this is a true collaboration. This is not competition. We've all come together, and the app is actually collecting what each person is doing from the time that they get their year. So as they work with every partner, it's being memorialized inside the app, and every partner has access to the dashboard, and they know what that person is doing with their services. And the way that it's designed is that a case manager can look and see if who is not compliant first and deal with those people versus the ones who are compliant. And then the second part of this is that this app is going to be used for a aftercare outcome study, because that seems to be the biggest problem that a lot of treatment programs have, whether it's sober living programs, which use this app because they know where their people are at, if they're going to work or if they're going to hang out in the park instead at work, they can literally see where the people are all day. Is how do you get in touch with the people who have left your program? Well, these people are part of a diversion program, so part of their diversion is to be compliant with the app. I'm not even sure where I am at time.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. So, through the scaling of this is that, you know, a lot of people really, I'll tell you folks, I put my life savings into developing this. People make fun of me. From 2018 to today, we've been able to scale this to where that before COVID, apps were kind of on the decline. COVID really brought back the utility of an app, because that's how that, you know, we had to turn to an alternative method. So also is that, imagine, like, we've been able to help more people deal with DUIs, deal with family issues, be able to connect immediately with peer support. Most relapses do not happen between banker's hours. There's a lot that goes on from 4:30 and through midnight where you don't have access to your normal supports. So if we have people that are accessible through the app for peer support, then immediately they can request that meeting and somebody's there. We've had pilot projects with nursing boards that they're nurses that are under supervision for substance abuse related issues. Before, everything was paper. Now they can be on this app. They can do their case plan, and then the lady who's over that in Frankfurt can literally sit on the dashboard under that jurisdiction and see who is not compliant in the state, instead of having a stack of papers on their desk and having to hand key all that, and then finally get to somebody and say, oh no, they're in crisis, they're not doing what they need to do. So literally it's a case management tool as well. I can't be tracking a successful rehabilitation electronic monitoring without a successful treatment company. And pairing the two, we've been able to go from one little building in London Shopping Center to a large office in London, expanding to children, family services, a juvenile IOP, to office in Corbin, we're in Russell County, Hyden, getting ready to open one in Hazard. We have other satellite offices, and we meet people where that they are. And we've had people that's been on the app that was court ordered that actually continue to pay for the app, and we're talking $1 a day. And what is successful about this is that the dollars that pay for this come from the participants themselves. And I've learned people want their money's worth. When they're paying for it, they want their money's worth. I have better outcomes when people pay for the use of their app than if any county or government program pays for it, because that's their dollars and that's their first investment. And that's how it happens when we meet them at the Sally Port. It's their money that pays for it. It's what gets them out of incarceration, and we're an alternative to it, and they want their money's worth.
Thank you, Renee. We appreciate that. Our next speaker, we got to know each other in pre-Senate Bill 200 days when I felt like I really could help kids. He was at the Ridge in Lexington at that time. If you don't know where it's at, it's out just Man of War on that vicinity. And at one time, I think he had more kids from Whitley and McCurry counties than he had from anywhere. But he was doing a great job there, and I know he is now too. But anyway, Jeff Wilson, President of Kentucky Association of Addiction Professionals.
All right. Thank you very much, Judge Pruitt. She's right. We were reminiscing earlier about, gosh, for a long period of time, it just seemed like, now who referred you, Judge Pruitt? Yeah. Judge Pruitt. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yep. 12 out of the 16 here from Judge Pruitt. So, yeah, legal issues related to addiction and recovery. I'm going to kind of talk to you guys a little bit from a slight, kind of a different perspective in a sense, because we take a step back and you think about alcoholism, opiate use disorder, methamphetamine use disorder. I think we would all agree these are chronic medical illnesses. Okay. I've been an outpatient provider for 20-something years, and it's interesting that with this particular chronic medical illness, oftentimes the gauge, especially an outpatient level of care, of do I have a problem is a legal issue. I mean, if I've heard once, I've heard 1,000 times, well, I haven't had a DUI. And that's like a measuring stick for, do I have this chronic illness, which is kind of fascinating, because when you think about heart disease, cancer, diabetes, the symptoms that come along with those, oftentimes when somebody starts to experience something, I'm going to go to a doctor. I want this to change. This illness is very unique, oftentimes because of the impact it has on the brain. No, even though I can see all the things that are happening around me, the thought of change, it's not just this inherent thing that somebody gets. Typically something has to happen or occur. And you think about, how do people change with this illness? Well, most people change when they have an emotionally compelling reason to change. An emotionally compelling reason to change. Well, unfortunately, with alcoholism and substance use, that oftentimes does not come from inside. It takes something from the outside, to make that happen. I've been working with adolescents and substance abuse since 1994, 95. And as Judge Pruitt mentioned, you think about an adolescent that's going to come to a 28 to 45 day inpatient treatment program. And I did that for 13 years. How many of those patients do you all think actually came to the Ridge, knocked on the door and said, hey, can I come hang out with you for 30, 45 days? Two. I can remember two. Out of all that time, almost all of them, there was some type of legal intervention, something that said, listen, I'm presenting to you a compelling reason to change. You're losing your freedom. Your parent is not going to have a choice in what happens here because of the symptomology of your illness. It's led to this point, But and even now in outpatient practice, kids that I work with that have substance use issues, oftentimes it is a school. Either they fall beyond school control, they've been arrested at school, something's happened there, at home. And man, if I've done this once, I've done it 10,000 times, but working with parents on, okay, I'm at the point of, I'm going to have to go file a charge against my 17-year-old daughter or my 16-year-old son. I'm at the point of, and I was talking to a mother about this not too long ago. Okay, your 17-year-old daughter is stealing your car at night, is taking your ATM card and taking money out of it, has forged a check, is coming and going when they want to, is failing grades. Are they out of control? Yes. Okay. There's a step that we need to take here, and you love your daughter. You don't want this to happen. And fortunately, we're talking about a status offense. It's going to go away when they turn 18. Okay. It's not a public offense. And I talk to parents a lot about, let's do this. So hopefully we don't get a public offense. If we can get into care now. But that 17-year-old, if she says, hey, sweetheart, I made an appointment for you to go see Jeff Wilson, what are the chances that kiddo's going to go, I can't wait, Mom? It's slim to none. Okay. So I'm used to having kids come in, sit down with their parent. And it's like, the picture perfect of resistance, which I like a challenge. I like those kids. But trust me, if it wasn't for something else, outside of you're grounded for the rest of your natural born life, you're never going to drive, all that stuff, they're not going to come. So it takes sometimes the legal system to help with the motivation. I work with a lot of adults. Okay. Now let me ask you all this question. Here's one for the audience. If you had to say what percentage of adults that enter inpatient treatment, substance abuse treatment, are the courts involved? 20%, 30, 50, 80, what do you guys think? Got an 80, got a 60, anybody else? 45 to 60% of the time. Okay, so think about that. 45 to 60% of the time, something has happened legally that's been the fuel for this adult to go, I'm going to go here for fill in the blank, 7 days of detox, 14 days short term, 30 days. And that's important because without that, I would not have met them. When I think about all the folks we treated at the Adult Recovery Center at the Ridge, and when I was at the Schwartz and some other places, inherently, now again, many of those people did decide, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I don't like what's happened to me medically, physically, everything spiritually, and I'm ready to change. But many, half sometimes, 2/3, it takes some type of legal scenario to get them motivated to come in. Now here, that's just to get in the front door, okay? And you guys know this. One of the reasons that, drug court, I think is wonderful because, number one, obviously with the legal situation, here's a chance for that person to have that change. If I can do these things, complete this program, man, I might not have a felony, which is huge. You guys know. But also too, it helps me stay engaged. I'm accountable to somebody. I'm responsible. I have to suit up and show up. And it's going to happen over a long period of time. So for the individuals that came into inpatient treatment that were involved in drug court, for me, it was like a sigh of relief. I know a lot of their aftercare, what they have to do, what they have to follow up with is already set up for me, so they're going to step down and right into that. I wish more patients had that, because the ones that don't, oftentimes it is more upon themselves with, am I going to follow up and do what I need to, the research shows, the recommended dose of treatment for an adult substance use disorder client is 90 days of consistent care, 90 days, a minimum of 90 days. Okay. In the United States of America, only 15% of the population gets that. 85% do not get the recommended dose of treatment for a lot of reasons. I don't want it. My insurance won't cover it. I don't have transportation. It's not available in my community. But at the end of the day, especially when it is available, oftentimes it is the legal system that really is a huge piece of that. How many folks here have ever filled out a Casey's Law petition? A few of you guys. Okay. One of the things that's been so helpful with that is for an individual that their substance use disorder is at a point of, I am a danger to myself or other people because of my substance use. Now there's a mechanism to say, stop, we're going to assess, okay, we've determined you are, and there's going to be a legal backing to ensure this person actually gets care. And so many times I've worked with adults, or listen, people I supervise in programs to see people come in under a Casey's Law. And they get there and they start to do good treatment with them and they start to recover and they start to recognize I need to stop this, do this. And then I start to figure out, hey, there's some things I need to do change. But it took that intervention. It took somebody stopping and saying, your freedom is on the line here to help them get to a point of recovery, So, I've been fortunate in my 27-year career to do a lot of work with Bureau of Prisons, Department of Juvenile Justice, adult probation and parole, Casey's Law we talked about, local PD, because that is such an important piece of recovery for a lot of the clients that we work with. Now, that also takes us to other pieces of this that are extremely important. A lot of patients we work with, because of active addiction, they're going to acquire legal history. And you all know too, that legal history can also put their recovery in jeopardy. So for example, housing cannot be eligible, okay? If I have to click that box that says felony, legal history, immediately some jobs are just, they're gone, So some of the work that's being done right now in our country to look at, over a certain period of time or with recovery, how do we expunge charges? How do we change some of that? Because that definitely plays a role in the revolving door that we see sometimes. All the research shows employment is such a big piece of somebody's recovery. When I am waking up, got to get ready, go to work, interact with people that are supportive, I'm doing a good job, I can feel good about it, I get paid, and I can go home and do it the next day. That's so important. But a legal history sometimes can prevent that. And I've had some clients over the years that get so frustrated. And yes, it would still be an excuse, but it is an excuse to go back because I can't get hired. So there's other pieces of that, and we're making some progress. We look at that right up to, some of the things going on with, decriminalization, marijuana, that's a whole other topic, okay? But because a lot of individuals, they're struggling after the fact of, can I establish all the foundations I need for my recovery? So, there's different aspects of this that as treatment providers, we always have to be cognizant of for our patients. So, but, the piece that I really wanted to talk about was how important it is as treatment providers to really understand the legal, status of your patients and how do we use that as a part of their recovery. A lot of the supervision I do, I was just talking to Supervisor Z about this last week of, when the client's admitted and you're sitting down, you're doing an assessment, when you see referred from Judge Pruitt, referred from Bureau of Prisons, referred from this worker, pick up the phone, call them, introduce yourself. It's one of the best things to see that patient, see you, talk to them, because we're all on the same page. It's united, okay? While they're in treatment, hey, let's call and check in. Okay, trust me, the folks that make the referrals, they like that. They want that. As treatment providers, it's one of the best things we do. But it's also really good for the patient to see that. We're all on the same page. And definitely before they leave, let's make sure we're on the same page. Where do you need to go? Where do you need to show up? Is it a do not pass go? You leave here and go directly there. All those important aspects that is going to help this person's recovery get off to a better start. So I just want to spend some time kind of echoing some of those points. I didn't have like a formal presentation, but I thought that would be important information for us to talk about. But please, when we get done, if you guys have some more questions about that, thank you all.
Now, do our personalities measure what? That's why we always get along so well. Let me just throw one thing in there. Toward the end, he was talking about look and see who referred. Well, in my case, it's going to be me or Reclining Futures, but of course I already know about it. So we had one kid, I'll never forget it, Melissa, you'll remember this, but he was rebelling, I'm going to leave, I'm going to leave. Well, first thing you learn as a judge is you never send a kid to in-house treatment without doing an order. You shall complete the program at the Ridge, the whatever. Failure to do so will result in contempt of court and your incarceration. So one kid was given, it may have even been the Ridge, I don't remember, it's been a few years ago. And I think I called Melissa called me and said, can you call? I did. So anyway, the person I talked to at the facility said, okay, I've got your kid sitting in here and he says he's going to leave. And she said, may I put you on speakerphone and let you read the order to him? I said, I would be happy to. So I basically read the order and I said, so Johnny, are you gonna stay or do you want me to send the sheriff to pick you up and take you straight to Breathitt County? So he completed the program. So sometimes it's so important that we know and we communicate and know what's going on. So anyway, that was my little tidbit there. Okay, our next speaker is Danielle Perkins. She is Justice Program Administrator, Victim Advocacy and Support Services of Kentucky State Police.
I'm gonna time myself. Ramble like nobody else. Again, my name is Danielle Sandlin Perkins. I'm the Justice Program Administrator for the Kentucky State Police. I'm over the Victim Advocacy and Support Services, our Angel program, which is what I'm going to talk about today, and our Handle with Care, which is law enforcement notification to schools when children are involved in traumatic events. And I know today you've heard a lot about ACEs, you've learned about trauma. You've heard all kinds of things that precipitate addiction and substance use disorder. And a lot of the times when I come and I talk to people about our Angel program, they think, oh, it's the Kentucky State Police. They can make people go to rehab. No, that's not what we do. And then they ask, oh, but okay, you're a victim advocate. You have Handle with Care and all this other stuff. And side note, I'm also a clinical psych graduate student here at Union. But a lot of the times they talk about, oh, law enforcement, they want to get folks into treatment because these folks commit crimes. But statistically, those folks are also more likely to be a victim of a crime, right? And then we also have our victims that have come through on our DSS 115s as children who then you see grow up and then you see them through coming through addiction treatment later on and in the court system. So it's all kind of a circle that I would like to see stopped at some point for a lot of folks, but with our Angel Initiative program, it's voluntary. It's a voluntary, proactive, statewide assisted program, and it offers treatment placement to those Kentuckians that are battling addiction and substance use disorder. So it was started, the main goal that the Kentucky State Police had in mind when they started this program was to save lives, because a lot of the times we are on the scene when they have an overdose death or an overdose. So we go through a lot of, no secret, we go through a lot of Narcan here lately. So the Kentucky State Police, they started the Angel Initiative. It was a pilot at one of our KSP posts in Pikeville in 2016. And we had the assistance with a lot of partners in this. Unite, there were a handful of folks that helped us kind of navigate. This is pre-me. I've only been with the Kentucky State Police for about 3 years, but this was pre-me. Help us navigate getting together this program, what it would look like, and how to move forward with general orders and the necessary documentations, building those relationships within the community. And the program was then implemented in 2018 at all 16 of our Kentucky State Police posts. So that's all across the state, all 16 of them. We have victim advocates at 16 posts. And we also have the Angel Initiative available at all 16 of us. Our objectives, we're out there. Many treatment facilities have probably heard from us, if not from myself, but from one of the victim advocates at one of our posts. We want to forge those relationships within the communities that our posts serve. We want the treatment facilities to know that we're there. We want to know that, how can we best partner with you to help folks that are coming in to get addiction assistance with placement. We also provide additional resources for the community, for those within the community that are seeking voluntary assistance for substance use disorder. So we also have our drug trailer that Public Affairs has that we take to schools. Here recently, we've also partnered with Refuge for Women on human trafficking. So part of our drug trailer will now have a, it's kind of a learning, what do they call it? It's going to be kind of an interactive learning for children with the intersection of drug addiction, substance use disorder, and human trafficking, because we're seeing a lot more of that in our communities at large. And also to provide professional and compassionate treatment to those seeking assistance through the entire process of going through the Angel Initiative without fear of prosecution. So they can come in and to any of our posts and say that they need help. They can have narcotics on them. They can have paraphernalia. And we'll take those and we'll destroy those and we will not charge them for it when they're going through the Angel Initiative. I like to tell folks, when I was at Post 7 there in Richmond and had an Angel Initiative, I like to tell them the first thing off is that, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're here. You're very, very brave to be here. Because for someone to walk into a police station of any sort and say, hi, I have drugs on me and I need help. I would like to go to treatment. That, and even moving forward, saying that you need help. You've decided to take that next step. That's brave. I'm always in awe when folks come in. So what to expect if someone with a substance use disorder or addiction comes into one of our posts is we're going to ask for photo ID or a means of identification, a copy of insurance information, but if they don't have insurance, that's not a disqualifier. There's many facilities that don't take insurance or help the individual get insurance once they get there. One of the first steps is they have to sign a participant agreement form. This gives us the ability to do a background check to make sure this person is who they say they are. And it also allows us to do kind of an overall search of, take their narcotics that they have on them and their drug paraphernalia. And also, they do come onto posts, so we go into a closed room with them. So it allows us to make sure that they don't have any weapons or anything like that. So we take the drug paraphernalia. They won't be jailed, charged, investigated, anything like that. We'll destroy it as soon as possible. And we're asked to ask them to provide intake information. So it's basically like the intake form that any treatment facility does. So we'll take that form. And then we'll start looking for an angel coordinator. It's usually the victim advocate at post. Sometimes it's a trooper. It depends on who's there, what hour of the night, because we have folks that come in. Like I said, it's not a 9 to 5 kind of thing. So they will take all the intake information and then start trying to find a treatment facility that best meets that individual's needs. So if detox, some folks come in and say, I need outpatient. So we can help them locate outpatient. And we take those forms and we'll either email them to the treatment facility, we can fax them to the treatment facility. I know some treatment facilities still need to talk to that individual, so we'll facilitate that in a private room so they can talk to the individual coming in. And at any time during this process, the individual can say, you know what, I've changed my mind. I don't want to go to treatment, and they're free to go. They're allowed to leave post, and they can come back at any point. We don't hold them, and they're free to go. So with the Angel Initiative, a lot of other law enforcement agencies have Angel programs. They use volunteers to do transports. At KSP, our troopers are the angels. They do the transports. This also allows us in areas that have fewer beds and treatment facilities available. We have the ability, as a statewide agency, to do relays. So I could have somebody in far western Kentucky, but there are no beds for methamphetamine use. So that trooper can then relay, go from post 1, 2, 3. We have troopers meeting them at each of our post boundaries. We can relay them. We've actually had western Kentucky to Corbin to Crossroads. We've done that before. So if they do not have transportation to treatment, we can get them across the state very quickly. So I think that is awesome. And again, it's voluntary. A lot of the times we get calls from moms that say, hey, Johnny, he's on drugs. Can you make him go to treatment? Well, how old is Johnny? He's 25. He has to make that decision and come in on his own. Eligibility, there are some eligibilities depending on your on the criminal history check. So outstanding arrest warrant, we do have to arrest if someone comes in with an arrest warrant. Now, if it's just like a tiny, I have to pay a fine for PI, then we could always work with them during business hours to get that, to have them pay that, so that way they can go ahead and go. Non-extraditable arrest warrant in another jurisdiction, a registered sex offender. So any registered sex offenders, we provide them information in order for them to reach out and find a placement. If our angel coordinator, whether it's a trooper or anything, can articulate a reasonable belief that the angel participant might be a harm to others, then we can halt the angel initiative by that and find alternatives for that. Any candidate that is under the age of 18 has to be accompanied by their legal guardian. So we can't place any minors without a legal guardian. And of course, we have all of our KSP posts, and at any time, any individual, I think some of them may have hours of operation for the Angel Initiative, but those usually, if you do come after hours, then any of the troopers are usually there and can help an individual find treatment. Trying to think if I missed anything. I went through that pretty good. I was like, wow, I still got 3 minutes. So this is our poster. And if we have our Angel Initiative website also, where we have a little web form at the bottom. So if you ever want to reach out, those come to me there at headquarters. And, you know, I can answer you, or I'm also available on email.
I have to say, I did not know this existed, so you need to pay attention to that. Do you have any numbers on successful completion or entry numbers or any numbers?
I think so far we've successfully placed 189 individuals.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Okay, that's all the speakers. Now we're ready for questions. Any questions?
I'll go in reverse order to this lady. If it is after hours and we would either take from the post or refer them to post, or they just hit the big button and talk to the dispatcher?
Let me repeat your question. So if it's after hours, what happens?
Yeah.
Yes. So if it's after hours, they go
Come on down here. Come on down here. Sorry. We want to make sure everybody can hear. This is for you online people. Hello.
Hi, me again. So if someone does come to post after operating hours, say the clerks have gone home, it's all closed in, our lobbies are usually never locked. So they can come in, they just pick up the phone. There's a phone there in the lobby, and it's the radio room. It's dispatched. So they just pick up and say that, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm here. I would like to do the Angel Initiative.
No need to call in advance.
If they call in advance, that's great too. I mean, that's awesome. We can have somebody on site. Like I cover post 7, which is in Richmond. I live in Georgetown, so it takes about 40 minutes for me to get there. So if someone calls ahead, say from Lee County or Owsley County, and says, hey, I'm coming to post because I want to do an Angel Initiative, that gives them time to call me out. So I'm on my way, that person's on their way. We hit post about the same time, and we can start the process.
Thank you.
Jonathan, I think you had a question?
Yeah, Judge, this is for you or for Jeff, maybe both, but something that we've talked about quite a bit at Addiction Recovery here is it's not in our wheelhouse because we don't treat juveniles, but the danger for juveniles to take, just like anyone else, fentanyl. With, there were two Ohio State University students that died over the past couple of weeks. Thought they were taking illicit Adderall. Of course, it turned out they were taking, either pure fentanyl or a combination of fentanyl. And I just wonder, you're seeing juveniles and dealing with juveniles who have a variety of issues. How common is it to see juveniles taking illicit drugs right now?
Very common. We had one girl, the 17-year-old, she was positive for, she'd run away. We got her back meth, amphetamines, cocaine, marijuana, at least. It would kill me if I had taken that. But yes, we do see it. And have we seen fentanyl, Melissa?
Yeah, the one that was 17, that's what she.
And she had fentanyl. Okay, yeah, she had fentanyl too. Yeah. So yes, we're seeing it. It's everywhere.
The Center for Disease Control just came out with some numbers about that. This last year is the highest number of adolescent overdose fatalities that we've ever had. Absolutely. And it's kind of opened up the door a little bit more for, medication-assisted treatment. I mean, it's actually indicated for 16 and up. So more and more prescribers are kind of looking at the risk of overdose versus, okay, let's try to do some initial stabilization with a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old, either get them treatment. 10 years ago, that wasn't coming up as much. And Vivitrol after treatment.
And to be honest about it, we're happy just to see a kid using marijuana.
Yeah.
I mean, you can help with marijuana. You can't help without a lot of work with meth. Okay, other questions? Yes, go ahead. I'll get you next.
I had a question for Renee. Have you had any issues with, not having good coverage in rural areas for your app to work?
So the question is there an issue with good coverage for the app to work? And that's a Renee question?
No, and actually, my technology partner is focusing on Knox County because our work here, because this is the blackest hole of communication in the entire country. And I am not joking. So if you live on Stinking Creek, I got you covered. Between Verizon and AT&T, there's times where that if I've had someone that was on the phone and the bracelet, because the phone is Verizon, we've actually had to put them on the app to pair the app with the bracelet because of AT&T. In this county gets better coverage, but we've never not been able to cover anyone.
Okay, next question.
Renee, I had a couple of questions for you. I appreciate you giving the presentation as well as to our other speakers. So if you can just talk a little bit more about the resume and the job training or the job building function of the app. And then I'm also curious if you are collecting any outcome measures specific to that training.
Okay, so Renee, training and outcomes.
The app has a resume builder in it, and the reason that is the function goes for, we work with people who have child support related charges. And so if they build a resume inside of our app, then we can actually track who they're applying for jobs for. We actually do financial counseling, literacy training with them, and we can put into the app what their paycheck is, how that they need to spend it, and how much will need to go to child support. So that is a very important feature for a diversion program as well for people that have child support related charges, or people that are afraid that they're going to get child support charges. But Russell County is using the app for child support because it does no good for them to be in jail just racking up more debt. And all of our employers that is a partnership is committed to being a second chance business. So with my work on the Kentucky Chamber Recovery Task Force, we're giving all these businesses the information about being a second chance employer. So they're all very aware that they're going to be getting people that have substance abuse issues, pending charges, or that they have past charges.
How about the outcome numbers?
And the outcome numbers are being collected in live real time. So at any day, if someone asks, we can run a report on the app to all their activity that they have currently done from the day that they've been on the app to current that day. So any day a report can be made. And then if a certain program wants to have specific outcome measures, we can build the questionnaires to begin with. And I think it's important to say too is that the questionnaires are randomized, so they have to literally take a selfie of themselves that caches in the app. It GPS locates where that they're at. And one of the unintended consequences is that we've been able to catch 4 cases of serious domestic violence because the victim was not able to have time to put makeup on to cover the bruising and the cuts on their face, and we were able to immediately address it. And that was an unintended consequence I'm most proud of, because we were able to get all 4 of those women out of a situation where that they would have rather stayed in a DV situation than go back to jail. And we offered them an alternative.
Just a follow-up question, if you don't mind. So as you're collecting the outcome data, and obviously you said you, like on the back end, you can build in some of those algorithms. Are you collecting enough at this point where you can show to your community or the communities, the state, and then right larger to the taxpayer, the return on investment? So i.e. they're putting $1 into this app, but the community or the state saving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is the best outcome I've had, and that I demonstrated in one of my pitch contests. So having 15 minutes blew me away when I'm used to having 4. We worked with a guy that got shock probation out of Fayette County, got drug court. He went from a SAP program inside of Laurel County Detention Center to Fayette County Drug Court. He used the app from the day that he released from the jail. We actually gave him a phone. He's actually one of our testers, and it has a help section on it too. So you can actually hit a button for AA, NA, or Celebrate Recovery. It will come up and it'll tell you the closest meeting to where you're at, give you directions, put it on the calendar. You can prove that you were there, get you directions. Everything is inside the app. So he was able to successfully complete drug court utilizing this app the entire time. He went from a tax drainer to a taxpayer. Now he's a successful businessman in Richmond, and he owns his own company. He employs 8 people, and he makes over $300,000 a year. And we were able to count how many dollars that he has paid into back to Social Security, how he pays, how his employees are actually contributing, because one, he got the opportunity for drug court, and that he still uses the app today to keep himself accountable. And now he drug screens and uses a lot of stuff that he learned in drug court with his own employees, and he's in the concrete business.
Okay, the back,
As an employee of drug court,
I can't hear.
but as an employee of drug court, your program sounds amazing. I was just wondering, I know you said something about Russell County, but like, are you all trying to get this in their state, like,
Are you asking me about drug court?
the app?
Okay, about the app. Are you trying to get all the stuff?
We are actually, this app is used in lots of drug courts around the country, and it's used by federal probation. I'm just gonna put it out there, Kentucky is very political, and getting drug court in Kentucky, I can't get better success in other states than I can in my own backyard, in my home state, is that there was a pilot program that got cut on the last day for Kentucky's drug court program for this app. So, demand it. And I want to add this to it too, that for the $1 a day, everyone gets, we have a support center in Lexington that's 24/7 that is actually eyes on everyone, and they answer the phone. So it's not just, a small operation where we actually, it's like a air traffic control center.